This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Karina Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different cues.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Karina Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Joining us in studio is Maine State Representative Steve Bishop. Welcome back.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
The first time you joined us, you were newly elected. After completing your first year as a legislator, what experiences or challenges were different from what you may have expected?
Wow, that's a great question. There were so many of them, that so many things you go into expecting from listening to your predecessors, people I've met in the past. I had this illusion of what it was going to be, and then I get there, and the biggest surprise for me wouldn't be what the actual topic was. It would be, what is that topic going to make me look like? And that was a huge concern for me, talking to other legislators, that more people were concerned about what the topic was going to make them look like than what the answer or the result was going to be. Take inspection stickers, for instance. We dealt with that where I wound up on the Transportation Committee. So much of that was, what is this going to look like for the people of Maine when they see that the inspection sticker cost could potentially go up? And for me, as a business owner, I was looking at it as, well, right now we have a functional system that the fee structure covers the cost of the inspection stickers. So why are we messing with it at all? Very few things in state government or in general actually pay for themselves right now. And we have something that pays for itself in this program. When you look at changing it up, increasing the fees, and developing an electronic monitoring system that was proposed, what was real was it was actually going to hurt smaller shops. And it was going to keep their ability from being able to produce inspection stickers in rural areas, and could hurt small businesses. So in the end, that particular bill wound up getting carried over. And there's some tweaks that are going on now. When I say carried over, we're going to push it into the next session, into next year. And what's real, the real content to that, is we're working on it. We're talking about it. We don't have to worry about what it does or doesn't look like. We're worrying about what we're actually going to do with it. An actual tangible result that will hopefully be good for the people of Maine in the end.
I'll tell you one more procedural type of surprise is that when we voted on the supplemental budget, the House voted in favor of the supplemental budget, and then it went to the Senate, and the Senate voted not in favor of the supplemental budget. And then when it came back to the House to be voted on again, within a matter of hours, there had been zero work done to it. So we're going from the House to the Senate, back to the House, with no substantive changes to the supplemental budget for a rerun vote in the House of everything that we had just voted on. Hours apart, with no work done. How do you expect a good result for any of us that have businesses, our taxpayers, really have the best interest for the state of Maine in mind, and we're not doing the work to make any substantive changes to anything that's going to help us? That was a big surprise for me.
Is it normally done that way?
I'm told that's how it works.
Oh, interesting.
That's not an uncommon practice that has happened in years past, for you to get something in non-concurrence, to come back to the House, and it to be voted on again. In my mind, that should have been pushed back to appropriations to fix whatever needed to be fixed to get things to a functional level. But that's not what happened.
Do you have time to read all of the bills before you vote on them?
Absolutely not. It all depends on the schedule for the day or the calendar or where they come out. If the calendar were to come out late at night and we were back in session the next morning, or if we were to be adjourned for even a couple hours, as we were in the last couple weeks of the session, and the calendar were to be produced and there were amendments or changes, absolutely not. But the information of how I voted on that, and a lot of us do, falls on the leads of the committees. Every committee has a party lead, whether it be Democrat or Republican, that reports back to what happened in that committee. So the topic of the bill was referred to a committee, and those are the people that are in charge of telling the other people within the party what happened with that bill and what the status of it is. It's impossible for everyone to read every bill and know what's going on all the time. But when you develop relationships with people that you can trust to know what's happening, that's who you ask the questions to, and that's how I made my decisions.
The last time you were with us, we were having a conversation with Sheriff Troy Morton, and the two of you and Sheriff Troy Morton, were both discussing working together on a bill that would alleviate taxpayers from having to fund drug testing for offenders. Tell us about that.
Yes, we brought up a bill and we brought that right to the front. That was LD 717. And one of the first law enforcement bills I was able to work on with local law enforcement agencies, after we had that discussion here, a lot more discussions happened after the fact. And we brought it through the process and into committee. And the first time that bill was heard in committee, it really went very, very well. The committee voted in our favor of it. And in our favor was in favor of repealing some of the things that had happened in the past by making municipalities, meaning taxpayers, pay for the drug testing fees when an offender was caught with drugs. For that to be a prosecutable case, it has to go to the state lab and has to be tested by them to be certified as whatever type of drug it is. And then it goes back with the results for the court to make it a prosecutable case. So when we ran it through the committee, we had I believe it was a 7-3 report in favor. All set. I was very encouraged by this. Unbeknownst to me, it was brought up for reconsideration. And that can happen in committee where someone will say that's on the prevailing side of an issue will come up and say, I make a motion to reconsider. The committee will allow it to be reconsidered and they'll take another vote on it. And then just like that, it became a party line issue, Democrat versus Republican. It was no longer about the merits of the bill and what was happening to the taxpayers of the people of Maine. It was now another optics issue, Democrat versus Republican. And then from there, out of committee, it moved on to the House floor for a vote where it was in the House calendar. And then as it came up, it got tabled and it sat there for a couple days. And then it was brought back up again and it was a party line vote. We did a lot of extensive work on that. It was very functional and it was very obvious that we had something that was important that was going to be functional for the people of Maine to make things fair. Right now, if someone's driving down the road in any municipality and gets a speeding ticket, the person who the speeding ticket is issued to should be the one paying the fine, not the municipality that stopped them. And that's how it works right now. The municipality that seizes drugs from an individual is the one paying the bill for the drug testing.
Wow. So that's you could almost call that another tax, right? For the property owners. Those are the people who are funding the municipalities.
Absolutely. Take my municipality, the town of Bucksport. We have a budget line for drug testing fees now. Same with any other municipality in the state of Maine. They're developing budget lines within their police departments to cover the cost of drug testing. And the idea behind this bill was to repeal that and make sure that it was part of the restitution process. So the taxpayers weren't paying for that. Instead of that money going to anything like cruisers or weapons or uniforms or anything like that, now it's going to pay for these fees, which is part of the burden that's increasing taxes. Unfortunately, with this case, after we ran through this process and it was successful in committee, and then it all of a sudden got brought up for reconsideration without any information to me, it just confirmed a lot of the things that I'd heard in the past, where the free thinking of a committee would be removed by the leadership in a majority party.
If you're just tuning in, you are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Maine State Representative Steve Bishop.
So why don't you walk us through a typical day for you at the State House?
It was no typical day. Every day was different. It was always an adventure. If I was staying at my home in Bucksport and I had to leave early in the morning around 5, 6 o'clock, stop, grab a coffee, make as many phone calls as I could for people that I knew were up and about early that morning and get as much done as I could beforehand. A lot of that has to do with calling any town's mayor with whatever issues we're working on. Whether I was in Augusta or not in Augusta, my priority was my district. So we are always talking to the local municipal leaders, whether it be select board persons, planning board, anything like that, and trying to work out whatever needs to be done. If we had legislation that was being voted on that day that had to do with school budgets, I was on the phone with the superintendent that morning or the night before sorting out how things would work. But my day would start out laying a good foundation of where we were headed, what the goals were going to be for the day, and trying to get as good a handle on the House calendar as we possibly could. The House calendar is the schedule of events for the day that comes in. And there are times where that House calendar wouldn't be released or developed by our very good, competent, hardworking staff at the State House until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 11:30 at night. So about the time that I'm on the road trying to get a handle on what we're doing today, there's a lot of people that stay close, stay in Augusta, stay at the State House, and they have a really good handle on what's going on. So you got to know who to call to lay out a good foundation for the day. Sometimes I would stay in Augusta because we'd have breakfast or we'd have meetings that would start real early. So we go to those, and then it's time for caucus at 9 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock, we're all on the House floor ready to go. For me, that would usually involve grabbing one of the 2 laptops with one of the many email addresses, trying to conquer whatever it is we can conquer while we wait. And then once things get up and running on the House floor, everything's going through, being processed through the House calendar and handling the emails, all the things that you could imagine would happen all at once. Oftentimes, I'll leave the House floor, go back into one of the offices, and grab my aide to help me with a couple things as we're drafting some letters of recommendation, trying to work on some things that have just come up on the floor, any amendments or anything that just get tabled. And then after we're done, after we're adjourned, the real work starts with what happened or what got tabled to see what we're going to accomplish. There's a lot of meetings that take place with a lot of different people, in a lot of different places when you're in committee. Anytime you're on, for my committee, for transportation, for instance, there's a lot to understand. Everyone has a different perspective or a different need in transportation. So talking to both sides of transportation issues is very important to get a very good handle on what's going on. So I spend a lot of my time just listening to people, trying to figure out what's real, because those sheets that they'll just hand you in the hallway from the lobbyists are definitely agenda driven, and you really got to fact check those.
Speaking of lobbyists, when Karina and I were down at the State House a couple of months ago, we were trying to talk to some of our representatives, and some of them were tied up with lobbyists. Do you run into that quite a bit down there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's more there than I had expected that there would be. And this being my first year, seeing the amount and seeing the people there, some of them are very respectful, very nice, very kind, very knowledgeable. And some of them, one of my first interactions with a lobbyist was I had a meeting that we had scheduled for after a transportation committee meeting, and things went late that night. And when we finally wound up at a restaurant to accomplish one of my meetings, a lobbyist saw who I was meeting with through the window of the restaurant while they were on the sidewalk, looked at us, waved, and walked themselves right in, sat right down at the table, and just started berating the person that I was having a meeting with. I just remember sitting there in shock with all my past experiences in law enforcement and all these other things. I'm just thinking to myself, what is happening here? And after that interaction was done and the person that I met with just got up and decided to leave, I realized for me, it was hard not to judge that firm that individual worked for. There's many lobbyists that work for the same firms, and everyone has a different style. But where that was one of my first interactions, I kind of thought to myself, this is going to be hard to take that firm seriously after this kind of interaction moving on.
Well, it's got to be tough because you're talking to a lobbyist versus talking to somebody in your town, and they might be on 2 different directions.
Oh, absolutely. But you could ask a couple lobbyists that I'm thinking of right now. It's very easy for me to make the case for my town when a lobbyist approaches me on an issue that says something that would go against what is best for my district or for my town. I just flat out tell them. And it's good. Some of them respond very well and some of them not so much. But that's fine. That's up to them. I have no problem telling them where I stand or asking them for more information later. Some of the good ones will work with you on wherever your stance is.
And I'm sure that your party does the same thing on some votes.
Yes, my party has been very, very good to me with some of the votes that have gone potentially against the party. You know, we'll talk about things for funding. I signed a letter and supported Maine Maritime's Academy's funding to be parallel with the University of Maine system. That was not popular amongst Republicans. But guess what? I live in Bucksport and represent it, and we have a Maine Maritime Academy hub in the town that is very important and crucial to our function. So I will support that.
Speaking of Bucksport, tell us about your work on the dams.
That has been one of the largest projects I've ever been involved with. Something that has so many dynamics to it. I'd never even begin to explain it to you, but our general function structure of a dam in the town of Bucksport that is owned by a large multinational company and also owns 2 dams in the town of Orland. And one of those dams in the town of Orland touches 4 other different towns. Meanwhile, the town of Orland's government structure is a select board person structure of 3, while Bucksport's has a town council structure of 7 of us. So the decisions that are made regarding the function and future of these dams that can be voted on by the town council in Bucksport does not happen the same way with the other 4 towns that are controlled by the dams in Toddy Pond. So as we moved through this past session, talking about the different forms of legislation that we did and didn't have or what could and couldn't work, the biggest one that sticks out to me was the ability to form the quasi-municipal entity that would allow the 4 towns to come together, share the cost burden of obtaining and running and operating this dam. And throughout the year, it was a major project between myself and another Democratic representative that we got it accomplished. We Got 100% support from Republicans, 100% support from the Democrats, and it was signed off on by the governor. So now that we have accomplished this and this is done, it's going to go to the towns, and it's going to be up to the towns to take this set of tools that we just built for them to run things appropriately, to get the message out, to make sure that the fee structures are scheduled, to get the costs out, to do the things that we won't be able to do as representatives in the state house, but that the towns are now going to have to do. And I never realized that as part of my job, being such a huge support system, not just for individuals, but for the towns, for town leadership to be able to come to you and work with all these towns to say, we need this set of tools to make this happen. How do we do it?
Well, it sounds like both sides work together. That's wonderful, because all you hear in the media and elsewhere on social media pages is how polarizing it is at the State House. Tell us what else you worked on.
No, you're 100% right. The media and social media are going to talk about these large scale issues. When it comes to an area like mine, a Republican being bordered by another territory that is surrounded by Democrats or anything like that, when it comes time to local issues, people in the State House actually function very, very well on local issues. But all you'll hear in the media is a lot of the large scale things, social issues, anything that are really party line driven topics. A lot of the drama that we had this year was all driven by the majority party, the Democrats. As we're talking about this now, I just realized that I think it was our first vote that we had come up was in January when we came back in to start our full session. The first vote that we actually took was a party line vote, Democrats versus Republicans, where the Democrats had launched a accusation for an ethics review against a Republican who had some legal issues that were taking place in the judicial branch. And I remember sitting there thinking, everything I've heard in the past is true. It's happening right now, where the majority party is coming after the minority party over something that isn't applicable, being the fact that we are the legislative branch of government. So why are we interfering with anything that would take place in the judicial branch? Let it take its course and let them do their job. Another example that we had with the large scale, I'll call it optics. Everyone's always talking about optics, what things look like and what things actually are, is that Republicans and Democrats have two very different styles amongst their leaderships. And some of the styles will allow a lot of communication and some of them won't. During one of the bills we had late at night towards the end of the session, the Democrat Party, the leaders brought up a bill that had already previously been voted on and then had been tabled. And once the numbers came into their favor, they brought it up and wanted to vote it in again so they could push it through. And Leader Falkingham stood right up and said, I would encourage all the Republicans that don't agree with this right now to get up and walk out that door. And that's what happened. We did. We walked out the door. We left. So there wasn't a quorum. So there couldn't be a vote that would take place. These are the things that are not good for the function of government at all. It's not good for the state of Maine. And it's not good for the function of the people that are within the legislature. Because the next day when you have to come back for that, the next time you all meet, there's this awkward tension amongst Democrats and Republicans. It takes a lot to reach across the aisle to your Democratic friends and say, hey, this local issue we were working on or this issue we were working on, we need to get back on track with that. We need to talk about that some more. This other thing that happened the other night, that's a different subject.
If you're just tuning in, you are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Maine State Representative Steve Bishop. You make a good point. How is the atmosphere the next morning when you're trying to actually get some work done for the citizens of Maine?
You have to push through it. There's an awkwardness where people will walk by each other in the hallway if you're just had a party line issue. And sometimes people won't even talk to each other. They won't say hi. They won't anything. But some of us, both sides, will say hi, have coffee. Some of us, I had multiple breakfasts and coffees with a lot of Democrats this year, as well as Republicans and sometimes staff from the governor's office. You have to push through these things. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but growth, function is uncomfortable for us. And we have to move on to the next thing if we're going to get anything done. Often people would state that I'm too close to my counterpart that is in the district next to me because of some of the extreme things that she's come out and done this year. But the reality is, for me, for my district, when it came time for the dams, that she represents two of the towns that we share. She was very functional. She was very good about it. And we would often high-five each other in the hallway or give each other a thumbs up across the aisle when our legislation got passed. That was functionable for my district. The rest of the things, these social platforms or anything else people want to talk about, they get a lot of high profile news we don't agree on. That's fine. We just need more people that can be strong enough to disagree and move on to what's going to function for the district and for the people of Maine.
So you're saying you're doing a lot for your community. How is your community doing?
Well, we're going through a transition right now for the town of Bucksport specifically. You can see that Bucksport's in a transition with a lot of the businesses on Main Street. A lot of restaurants are changing hands, have been up for sale. A lot of that you could say are the end of the line, end of a generation for a lot of the businesses. People are retiring. Things are changing with real estate. The town of Penobscot is going through a lot with construction on their roads, and they are doing very, very well with some of the things we've been able to obtain for them with their fire department. They recently received a grant for a thermal imaging camera that I just took a picture of the fire chief with, that we were joking around that the grant process was coming up to a deadline. They didn't realize the deadline was there. And when they sent me the email looking for a letter of recommendation for help with this, we had days. And I got the email on the House floor, got them their letter of recommendation, and we had a really quick turnaround. I've got no problem leaving the House floor to get something done for my district that's actually tangible like that. The town of Orland, we're celebrating their new fire department that just got built. Verona Island is one of those islands in Maine that just wants status quo. They don't want taxes to go up. They don't want to have to increase a lot of programs that they have to take care of and manage, and that's what makes it an affordable place for them to live. They piggyback off of the town of Bucksport's fire and ambulance service, so their services they have to provide are shared with other municipalities. And that very well could be a wave of the future as taxes go up, and could be a good hint for what's coming down the pike. A lot of municipalities don't have the ability to staff their police departments, their fire departments. If you look at other parts of the country, there are county-wide fire departments with larger servicing stations, but less admin. That could be something that we look at here in Maine moving on to help keep taxes down.
Now, I also know you guys have a marina down there in Bucksport.
We do. That's going very, very well. We just got a whole new grant system for all new docks down there. All the boat slips are full. I'm very close with the man that runs it, and he's really happy with how things are going. A lot of success in small towns. If you can put people that are passionate about what they're doing in key positions, you'll see those things thrive. And our team that runs the marina, they are the right people for the job. They're very passionate about it. And that's a big part of why we're doing well with that there.
And I believe your town manager is getting ready to retire?
She did. She just retired.
Yeah.
We were very lucky to have a succession plan lined up with our new town manager. And that process so far has gone very, very well. He used to work for the town of Bucksport several years ago, left, was a town manager for another municipality, and now he's back with us. He has a good knowledge base of what's going on. He's gone out in the world, learned a lot of things, and now he's going to put them to use for us. I'm real happy with the way that whole process went down.
Well, before we let you go, what do you have planned for next year in the legislature? What are you working on?
We've got a few different projects, things that got tabled, things that need some serious eyes on. I mentioned inspection stickers earlier. That's something that I'm really passionate about seeing its success. I don't have all the answers for it yet, but I can tell you that I'm talking every chance I get with the people that were against the implementation of a new program and the people that were for it, trying to find something that's going to allow the small businesses now that issue inspection stickers to be able to continue to issue those stickers and function so that people in rural areas don't have to drive to the larger cities to get an inspection sticker on their car that's required by law. We also had a bill come up to eliminate inspection stickers altogether, which didn't go anywhere. That died. And something new since we've adjourned that's come up is that New Hampshire has just eliminated their requirement to have inspection stickers. So when you look at them being our neighbor, how's that going to fall into the state of Maine wanting to spend more money to institute an electronic system to do more oversight over a program where our neighboring state has eliminated altogether? That's a whole new question mark that's come into play since we adjourned on that. I have several constituent issues. I'm really passionate about the constituent stuff. When someone calls any department, Secretary of State's office, Attorney General's office, a lot of times I hear people say, I had to leave a message, I couldn't get through to anyone, I sent emails, nothing's come back. I can tell you that from the Secretary of State's office, I've heard very few complaints like that. That office seems to be functioning very, very well. The other state departments, when I take constituents' problems to Augusta with me and I go to these departments, the commissioners, the people in these departments have been amazing. They've been very, very welcoming. And how things have got lost in the mix, sometimes it's not always clear, but it's really nice to be able to be the one to bring a resolution to some of these people's problems. Someday, I'll be elderly and I won't understand something. And I really enjoy being able to bridge those gaps and help these people understand or get something done for people they haven't been able to accomplish on their own. I feel like my title, being a state representative, you could almost change that up and you're the resource for that district of how you're going to get some of these problems solved.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And thinking of that, now that you have a year behind you, would you urge others to step up and run for state representative or for state senator?
Absolutely. We're going to have to get people with a new perspective to be able to push through some of these things of the past. Unfortunately, in a lot of the conversations and a lot of the things that happened this year with legislation that we voted on were things that have been voted on in each legislature for the past 3 and 4 legislatures. They're reruns. And that's not good for us to rehash these same things over and over and over again. And everyone has a memory or an axe to grind with these things. That's not productive. So I would highly encourage new people that are very motivated for their district, not necessarily for any party or for any specific agenda. I got into this for my community because it's my home. So many people are going different directions. The communities within my district that all make up my home are all very, very different. So to have an understanding of what's happening in each community, and you got to be willing to be flexible. I would love to see more motivated, engaged people run for office.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. It's always good to see you.
Great to be here. I appreciate all your support. And I've been listening to your other shows with the people that you've had on from all walks of life and parties. And I can tell you that from seeing the things that I've seen this year and having the perspective I have and the people that have come onto your show, it's been really nice that you folks are just getting what's happening out there without any sort of angle or reason attached to it. No bias. I appreciate that.
I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Q Point.
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time.
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.